Nicole suffered really badly from severe migraines, and she changed her diet for reasons nothing to do with the migraine and found her migraines disappeared. I'm going to let her tell you the story. So, Nicole, you started getting migraines in 2002, and I think it took you until 2017 to realize what was going on and to understand how you could stop them. So can you take us back to 2002 and then work us way up through to 2017 and what happened there?
Yes, I can, Jane. So in 2002, I had a little baby boy. And after he was born, some weeks afterwards, I was sitting with him in my arms, and suddenly I felt this enormous pain coming on in my head. And it really frightened me, actually. I felt like I was sort of splitting apart and I didn't know what was happening to me. Took a little while to work out what it was, but that initial reaction was, I'm going to die. And I really thought there was something really, really wrong with me. Um, as time went on and I researched a little bit and found out that this was sort of typical for migraines. And then I realized the pattern and that there had been visual disturbance before, but with a new baby, you don't really pay attention to these things, do you? So that was initially just a migraine. And then some months later, another one came. And gradually, as time went on, the frequency of these migraines increased. Towards the end of the period of time, maybe 2015 or thereabouts, the frequency of the migraines was about once a month, sometimes more often. It always started with visual disturbance, a sort of dancing in front of the eyes, a hypersensitivity to light and sound. Then it would develop into a feeling of pressure above the left eye and behind the left ear, as if a vice was applied to the head. It's really unpleasant. Um, and that would last. That would sort of, you'd get this feeling of lodging, and that would last for a number of days, sometimes up to 10 days, after which it would just disappear. And once it had gone, I would then have a feeling of sort of complete emptiness. I'd feel really vacant. It would take me longer to recall words, and my thinking would be slower. So it was really, really just horrible and unpleasant, especially with a young family and work and all the other things that, that we do in our lives. I did go see the doctor. I did seek medical advice. The doctor's response was, well, you just have to learn to live with that. Take paracetamol, take ibuprofen, other over-the-counter medications, and you can take up to this many a day, which I can't remember what the exact number was, but I was horrified. And you just put up with it. So for a number of years, I did put up with it. I medicated as little as possible, but I did put up with it. And as far as I was aware, there was no cure. I was aware of some people using more serious specialist migraine medication and so on. I didn't want to go down that route. Now, that's not the reason why I decided to change my lifestyle. No one had ever said anything about lifestyle. In 2015, my daughter went to university. We were in college with people who made vegan lunch, free, delicious fruit, vegetables, legumes, waffles, hummus, all sorts of things that people who eat plant-based diet enjoy all the time. I really enjoyed it, and of course, the conversation went to plant-based foods, benefits of plant-based food, and so on and so forth. And by this time, I was probably about 20 kilos heavier than I'd been in my 20s. I was a bit mum. I probably didn't have so much time to care for myself as I had done in the past. I also felt a number of symptoms that were lifestyle associated. As I said, I was heavier, I was thirsty a lot, sluggish, quite a bit of a brain fog. And as I did my research, I felt that I was potentially heading for sort of pre-diabetes or diabetes scenario. And when my friend was telling me about his lifestyle and eating plants, processed food, and all these lovely things that he did, I felt that perhaps this was something I could pursue and look at to change my lifestyle and to see if I could remedy some of these ailments that have been developing over the last few years. So I decided to trial it, but I had a big conflict within myself about whether I could do this and whether I could make these changes. What I think is really interesting, and I still haven't quite got my head around, that immediately after that visit, I gave up milk. I had no difficulty whatsoever in doing it. Went to the rice milk, and since then, I've changed the oat milk, the third option. That worked. And that was fine. And I never even looked back and thought that was difficult. Mm. However, it took me another 2.5 years to decide actually push ahead. I was reluctant, and I was one of these people who thought, I can probably shortcut. I can probably do it a little bit, do it a bit hard. Don't really know if I want to do this. And I know these people say, I could never go vegan. I couldn't give up my denture and all these things. I wasn't as severe as that, but I did sort of feel I wanted a bit of a hybrid. And I also don't like making decisions quickly. I still don't like, I like, I don't like to think. Right. My health complaints did continue to gradually develop. So in 2017, around April, I started studying plant-based lifestyle. I began to follow webinars and food plant-based summits. I read a number of books about plant-based living. There was at the time the most popular film about being plant-based was also Night. One of the very early ones, I watched that. Now, there were so many people who'd gone through similar journeys to the one I was going through at the time. And the other thing I did was I started really exploring plant-based cooking properly. So I began to learn how to do it. How, and in the whole food plant-based, how do I cook without oil? How do I cook without artificial edges? How do I cook without over salting my food? How do I cook with more ingredients from scratch? Not using cheese, not using meat, and just generally approaching food in a different way. Much more food from scratch, much more whole foods rather than foods that had been changed by some kind of artificial or chemical factory process. And I did this until the end of 2017. At the same time, I was still eating cheese. I was still eating meat. So although I was experimenting, they sort of came in at the side still. I still wasn't quite convinced. And by the end of 2017, I knew it was time to face the music. I knew how to cook like this. I knew what I needed to do. And also I was really fed up of not feeling great. So on the 1st of January 2018, that was it. I was going whole food plant-based, and I was going to make that change. Probably for the first few months, I was probably insufferable because I was really self-righteous about the new lifestyle, and I'm doing this so well, and everybody else should be the same type thing. But I did find a balance, of course, gradually, as you do with new things. From that 1st of January, within a week, and I wouldn't have believed somebody else who said this if I'd not experienced that myself, within a week, my brain felt clearer. And that the brain fog that I'd had for probably about 3 years started to clear up. Then gradually, as I went along over time, I noticed that I felt less tired. I felt less thirsty. My body had more energy. I felt more positive. And the weight started to drop off. I wasn't eating less. I wasn't dieting. In fact, I was probably eating more, but the weight started to drop off. And that gradually continued until I was back to nearly the weight that I was in my 20s. And that's where sort of it settled. And I've been around the same ever since. What I didn't notice initially was that I wasn't getting any migraines anymore. I just hadn't noticed because I was so busy being all healthy and plant-based and loving life and excited that I hadn't realized. And after maybe 2 months or so, I can't remember exactly how long it was, I started to get some visual disturbance. And suddenly I realized I haven't had this for a while. Gosh. And it was one of those moments where you think, I wonder if this is related. And then something else interesting happened because the visual disturbance went and I had some twinges and then it went. And the actual migraine did not develop in the way it had done before. So clearly whatever was causing the migraine, that cycle was still somewhere in my system, but it wasn't developing as it had before. It wasn't causing me the pain. And that has continued So I may occasionally get a migraine, but it's never as severe as it used to be. But what happens usually is that I have the visual disturbance, I get some twinges, and then it passes. It's not something I was expecting to happen with starting this journey. It wasn't the reason why I did all this change, why I undertook all these changes in my life. But it's probably the best thing that happened as a result. And I've been very excited about it. Since then, I have also taken part in a study, which it was only a very small scale study, which looked into the link between migraines and whole food plant based lifestyles. That was only a small scale study, but I'm hoping that there will be some larger scale studies as well so that more people can benefit, because I think migraines are so ubiquitous. So many people suffer with migraines and don't know what to do with it, resort to medication, and have very similar experiences to me, when clearly, at least, from my anecdotal evidence, there is the suggestion that this can indeed really make a difference and make life better. So for me, that was really, really unexpected, extra revelation that was even better than I could have imagined. So yeah, I was really, really happy with that. Another thing that's been really nice as part of the plant-based lifestyle is that initially, when I first started on this journey, much of the plant-based activity, especially whole food plant-based activity, was sort of US and Canada led, especially US led. And in some ways, living in the UK, I felt quite isolated from that. In about 2018, 2019, I found the Plant-Based Health Professionals UK, which is an organization here in the UK for people who want to live this kind of lifestyle. And it's been really, really nice also to share ideas and to learn from them and to be enriched by the information that they have shared. So I've really enjoyed that. And there's one other thing I'd also like to say just about my initial story. And that's that when I first decided to change to a plant-based lifestyle, there was quite a bit of lack of understanding around me and people who didn't really get why I was doing this. And I had to be quite brave and have 2 feet on the ground about doing this and pushing through. And it made me braver as a person, because when I could do that, I could do lots of other things. And so for me, that has also been a real benefit. And I feel less frightened of doing things.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's one of the really, I think, really interesting things about your story is that you weren't expecting your migraines to stop. You went whole food for more general health considerations, not specific migraine considerations. And, when people talk about food and migraine, they talk about giving up chocolate, giving up cheese, maybe. But clearly, in your experience, this is really something people should be looking at and seeing if it will help them.
Yes, I think it is. The barrier in our heads to doing this can be enormous. We can think, "Oh my goodness, I don't know. What if it doesn't work? I'm really worried about this." And even though with me it wasn't about the migraines, there was this enormous barrier somehow to doing it. But what we have to remember, and what I realized afterwards, if it hadn't worked and it hadn't made any difference to my health at all, and I hadn't felt better in any way, shape, or form, I could have gone back. So there is nothing to lose for anybody really in saying to themselves, I'm going to learn about this. I'm going to trial it for a month, 2 months, 4 months, whatever. If I get a benefit, I can decide whether the benefit outweighs what I've lost. If it does, I'll stick with it. If it doesn't, then fine. I'll go back to where I was. But for me, that never seemed an option. I think it was because I did my research and I knew. But another reason why it wasn't an option was because before I changed to a plant-based lifestyle, I loved food and I always enjoyed food, but food was just a part of life that I wasn't really dealing with great consciousness. It's just something you do. And changing to this plant-based lifestyle and relearning to cook, and really exploring proper whole foods and what you can do with them allowed me to really fall in love with food and to fall in love with the process of food and to become aware of how special food can be. It really changed my perspective, and it also changed my awareness of food when I'm eating it. And I think my relationship with food has really, really changed. Um, I'm aware of what I eat, and I now enjoy food more than I have ever done. So, whereas at the beginning, I expected it to be an enormous sacrifice. I expected I'm going to have to give up meat. I'm going to have to give up dairy. Oh, and I really like cheese. Meat wasn't as big a deal as the cheese, I think, which a lot of people say, of course. I'm going to have to give up all the other lovely things that have animal products in it. And those, of course, and I love cake. It's one of my favorite things in the world. I thought, oh, I'm going to have to give up cake. Oh, this is so terrible. And then I also want to go whole food, plant-based. So was this idea of, I'll give up loads of salt, oil, sugar, etc., etc. So initially, my focus was just on all this joy I'm going to, give up on. And you hear people say things like, "Well, you might live longer, but it'll be more miserable, and it will seem a lot longer without all those things."
But that's not been your experience, has it?
Yeah, and no, not at all. My experience was actually, this is great. I'm having such a lovely time, and I'm enjoying my food so much. And I learned that plant-based foods can be absolutely beautiful, and also that there is still the space for sweet treats, and that you don't have to be completely straight down the line where you can never ever treat yourself with something that's a bit more indulgent. Or so, although for me, for example, I wouldn't now have a piece of steak for a treat. I will still treat myself with, for example, a sugary treat, something that's much more indulgent, quite regularly. And so it's not become religious, but it has become my predominant lifestyle. And another thing I've really liked about that, becoming more aware of my food, is that it's really changed my relationship in terms of realizing where my food has come from. And although I first started this lifestyle from a health perspective, I am now very conscious that it's also a lifestyle that's better for the planet and better for the animals as well. And it feels a lot more aligned in terms of my values of caring for others, including the natural world around us.
Fantastic. You've got so much benefit out of it. And that idea that you were going to have to do without has been transformed into a much more fulfilling and joyful life. Your advice, I think, absolutely would be give it a go, commit to doing it for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and see how it goes.
Then if you don't like it, don't do it anymore. Yeah, you have nothing to lose. And I don't think anybody judges anybody for it, really. And if they do, then I don't know, maybe they just need time and they're not quite ready. So, and that was also the case in my home. Some of my children have also changed the way they've eaten. They're all grown up. One of them is also a vegan, and she made that decision after I went plant-based. And 2 others consume very little meat and have a mostly vegetarian lifestyle. And that's not my expectation. That's just because they've been exposed to the different lifestyle, and I've been really happy with that and enjoyed it, and decided that they themselves also want to eat in that way. So that's been really a bonus, because I know that for their health, that's really going to benefit them as well.
Thank you so much. I've loved listening to you. You explain it all so well, and it's just been fantastic. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Jane.